Good afternoon. You're watching AB Live, a news-based chat show in which we discuss topics ranging from business, news, politics, and so much more. On today's episode, we are talking about drone technology. Well, recently, Muscat Airport announced the deployment of anti-drone or drone detection systems, and today we have the men responsible for it in the studios. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome.
Right, so I'm going to start with you, Thorsten. Tell us more about Aronia AG and what it does and how exactly is it related to drone technology?
Yeah, we had this strange idea about 6 years ago to detect drones where nobody thought about it. So we had the antennas, we had the analyzers, and we had the software, and so we simply combined it and made a drone detection system.
Right.
So it actually was the mother of the drone detection system, was the first ever.
Right, so back then, 6 years back, was there a need for such a software?
Not really. It was just a crazy idea.
Right, and now there obviously is a need. But just before we get into the technology of it, Aditya, I'd like to ask you, how exactly is the Ramesh Khimji group connected with this, and how did you bring this entire idea to Oman?
Sure, so our group of companies has been active in Oman since 1983, and my father founded the company with a focus on civil construction and building materials trade. And we grew, and we had built a network and done some work for many interesting projects. And I always had a fondness for IT and telecom. So when I joined the group in 2009, civil construction, and it's still our backbone, and building material trade is still very much part of what we do, but I wanted to add something that I'm passionate about. So in 2014, we were awarded the critical communication networks for Muscat International Airport.
Okay.
And we delivered the Tetra systems under a new company which I founded in the group called Siracom. And building from that and adding to what my father had done and with his clients, we discovered that there was a big need for this in 2016.
Okay.
And I went around the world, I looked for the right solution, and it wasn't easy. Mm-hmm. And we spoke to many companies.
Okay.
And it was very obvious that people didn't really know, there was no solution. People were looking at all the avenues, from radar technology to RF monitoring and so on. And it was very apparent early on that there isn't a real solution yet. And one day at an exhibition in London, I was there and I met Thorsten. And I think Thorsten also realized that people didn't really know what people were talking about, and he had no patience, and he was, everyone who comes, he gives a very short answer and he moves on.
We saw that.
Yeah, that was the old days.
But I read about him, and from 2003, they're doing spectrum analysis. And they're providing the tools that are needed for knowing what RF, if there is any listening devices, is there anything in the room. Mm-hmm. And this is really the science that's needed for monitoring drones.
Right, so you're talking about radio frequency monitoring and not radar.
Yes.
Just making it clear for the viewer.
So with his 15 years of experience in that, in something that isn't very glamorous, mm-hmm. he's now transitioned to drone detection while still doing the other things.
Okay.
But that know-how isn't available with many people from small companies.
Right, so I'm just going to come back here. So you said in 2016 is when you realized that there is a need for something like this. So what do you mean by that? How did you realize that there is a need? Were there a lot of drones being detected, or?
It was more of a discussion that I had with authorities that they needed to find a solution and nobody was able to find one.
Right.
And even bigger companies, they were looking for customers to experiment on. They didn't want to spend the R&D. Mm-hmm. When they have a contract, then they'll go and find a solution.
Okay.
It doesn't work like that.
Right, so Aditya, you obviously handle the business side of things here. So I know you can't reveal how much investment has gone into the project, but just in general, to have such a system in place at airports, how much would it cost?
Depends on the size of the airport, of course. But if you have a big, major airport, we're speaking roughly about a few millions.
Right.
So up to 10 maybe. So it depends, really depends.
Just adding to what Thorsten is saying, when it comes to a system, it's not as simple as package A, B, or C. Mm-hmm. You need to have our systems are completely modular. So we will do surveys with our customers and realize the real requirement.
Okay.
And the real requirement, because when we're talking about RF monitoring, the specifications are much broader than the specifications when you go to buy a car. You have each site which has a different set of specifications within it as well. So it can go from a small system portable for a few hundred thousand that can go all the way up to millions.
Right.
Depending on how many modules you have, how many receivers you have, how many sites you have, how many areas you want to cover. So it's very tailor-made, it's very specific, and it's very difficult to give person a price on the first day.
Right. So unlike radars, of course, there are no emissions coming from RF
Yes.
systems.
That's a big benefit.
That is one of the big benefits. So it essentially acts as a spy on the spies, because that's what drones are called nowadays.
And you don't know that it's spying.
Right. So okay.
That's also a benefit.
Right. So tell us more about the technology and how exactly it works.
So I'll pass it over to Thorsten because he is the
Sure.
technical brain.
So what we are doing is we are listening to the RF,
Okay.
and we are searching the whole spectrum, let's say from 100 megahertz to 6 gigahertz,
Okay.
and look what's radiating. So we see cell phones, car keys, drones, whatsoever is emitting RF.
Okay.
And then we are classifying it. So we can say, okay, this is a drone, this is a car key, this is a cell phone. So we have special algorithms that know exactly which RF looks like what.
Right.
And that's the real good thing behind the software.
And has this been implemented at Muscat International Airport already?
It's in implementation, but we can't speak further about that.
Right, okay.
So just to add to what Thorsten said, so you have the different types of technology. So you have RF, which is what he's saying, where you can see where the drone is, you can see where the remote control is, even the video downlink between the drone and the remote control comes. So if you have the tools, you can see what the drone is looking at, not just where it is. But to add to that, there are different types of RF monitoring. What we have is much faster, and the way our antennas are built is proprietary and very unique, that we can get the height information of the drone.
That's special. That's
So
unique. On
there's
the
no
market.
other RF system in the world. So the argument is, you know where it is, but what's the benefit? Well, if you know it's within the flight path, then you can really make a difference and be aware.
Right.
And then comparing to the other side of things, we don't believe that there's anything that you don't need radar. It depends on the customer. So you have RF, you have radar, you have cameras, which is for optical verification, because you can't just get a detection. You need to see it and verify, yes, it's there.
Okay.
So we believe that more than saying which one is better, it's about the sequence of things.
Right.
So the benefits of RF, there's only two things that people can say that RF doesn't cover. Drones that are flying without a remote control, and the second being a satellite. So first is RF, where you cover 95% of anything that's flying. Then for the last 5%, you add a radar, which you need to integrate together. So you need a company that's able to do it seamlessly.
Right.
And then as a third level, you have the optical tracking.
Okay.
So it's a matter of explaining and educating that you have to prioritize. And you have to prioritize based on what you're trying to protect yourself against.
Right.
It's not just about, oh, everything is the same, because everything isn't the same, just like in real life.
Sure. So now I need to get to that. We've discussed the technology in detail, but why exactly is this the need of the hour? So what are the major risks that we have from the drones flying around? So off the top of my head, we know there's privacy, there's of course safety concerns considering it's in the airspace and the air path, of course. But what are the major risks specific to this region?
Also, I'll say financially, shutting down Heathrow for 1 hour.
Of course,
cost,
yes.
I don't know how many million, but you can look it up.
Sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's one. The major risk, of course, is if it hits the plane.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
So
I
we have to avoid that.
Yeah.
So the system can tell you the drone is far away, so you have enough time to tell the pilot, okay, don't approach, don't do it. There's a drone here. Circle, and then we tell you when the airspace is okay again.
Right, and that is a major risk, as we can see in this video. So we're just going to play a video for you which shows the sort of impact it has on planes, and like you mentioned earlier, it's right next to the engine, so the disaster can be catastrophic if it actually happens. So
This
just have a look
is
at this quick video.
Simulation of takeoff speed. The plane with the drone at the takeoff is 300 kilometers per hour.
Right.
And the drone is just hovering. And this is the impact, and there's slow motion as well.
Oh wow, so we're just going to take a look at this video right now. Wow, that was quite a video. I mean, thanks so much for sharing it, but it does show the impact it sort of has on it. But now, speaking of regulations and of course the risks that we just mentioned, so there are definitely three types of drones as far as I know, which is one based on the uses, of course. One is commercial, one is military, and of course the ones that people like us use, like cameramen, we use drones, real estate agents, as a hobby, a lot of people use it for photography, etc. So in terms of these three types, essentially, do you think there needs to be a separate regulatory policy, considering the regulatory policy is absent right now completely?
Sure.
Thorsten, do you want to take that?
Yeah, you need different regulations. So you need the regulation, of course, for military drones, which can't be commercial drones.
Right.
Yeah. Then, of course, you need a regulation for the drones for the industrial usage, which will be totally different from the commercial drones you have for the private people.
Okay.
So you need three different regulations.
But how exactly are these three drones different technically?
So commercially, things are a lot more standardized. So when you can talk about military, there's a lot more expenditure. So because of that, it's harder to track and monitor these things.
Okay.
Because of course there's millions and millions spent on it. So you need to spend millions to monitor it. Whereas something which is commercial, it's a lot more easier because of standardization, economies of scale. So generally the parts that are used are all similar from all the various suppliers.
Right.
So in terms of regulation, because the drone industry has picked up so quickly and so fast, there hasn't really been time for countries to get involved and regulate. So people aren't trained in flying. People aren't trained. I mean, just like you're licensed to drive a car, you should be licensed to fly a small aircraft.
Right.
Whether it is considered a toy or not.
But there are licenses given for drones though. So I was just on the General Civil Aviation website here, and there was a link which said click here to apply. And it was a very easy process, and that's exactly how we can just buy a license online.
Yeah, you have the regulations that you say we have a license that we own the drone, and you have a license that you can fly the drone.
There's no license to fly the drone.
That's totally different.
Right.
So it's like buying a car. Okay, I register the car and then I can drive. I cannot. First, I have to make a training. That's the problem.
Because the car itself, you're not getting your driving license for the car. You're getting a driving license for you. Right now, the drone regulations mostly around the world is the license is for the drone. So it doesn't really. There's no training for safety, best practices. People don't even understand where they can fly. The flight path. Yes, you can see the airport. Yes, the flight path, the airstrip is there, but the flight path carries on for kilometers and kilometers.
Right.
So somebody living, in an area which isn't even geofenced, over there you have ability to fly very high.
Right.
If you hack your phone, like in the old days, we were discussing earlier. Before, you used to jailbreak your iPhone. So you can get all the apps for free and you can do it's not difficult. You can get these tools online. Everybody knows
And it's easier in the case of drones.
So drones...
it's quite simple,
So you can hack these drones to fly them as high as you want, to fly them wherever you want. The only protection is coming from the manufacturer, nothing locally.
Right.
Also the geofencing, so you can fake the geofencing. And
So
you can say, I can fly on the airport.
So basically, none of the countries globally have a regulatory policy when it comes to drones.
No, because it's new technology. Regulation takes time.
Right.
Supply of equipment does not. So, actually, the people often say with drones that you're scared of the ones who know how to use it. You should actually be scared of the people who don't know what they're doing. Because the fool who buys it and doesn't know he's next to the airport or in the range of where the plane is going, he is more of a concern than the person who's trying to do something bad.
Because that's exactly what we're seeing on the systems that we already installed.
Right.
So we have a lot of systems already installed also on major airports.
Right.
And what we're seeing there is not terrorists, but we are seeing stupid idiots who want to make a picture of the airplane with the pilot waving, or if it comes worse, they simply lose the drone because of a malfunction.
Right.
And this drone enters the airspace of the airport by accident.
Right.
And that's what the system is also detecting.
So what we've seen with the Muscat International Airport is a solution to one problem, which is airspace, where you're going to detect drones within the airport and within the premises. But there are other problems, of course, where it's used for surveillance. There's safety issues. We've also seen it at stadiums. I think at the Super Bowl recently, during the practice match, we saw a drone falling down and injuring people. So what are the solutions for that? And I want to know if Aronia has solutions for such cases as well.
Yeah, we have solutions for every business case. So if you have a private property, you have a yacht, or you want to make border control, whatever you want to do, we have the solution for it, and we already did it.
Okay.
So this is not an experimental thing anymore. This is already installed.
Right.
Yeah. And you just tell us what you want to protect, and we will make a survey, and then we will install the system. Finished.
Thorsten was
Works.
telling me about in the past, companies, now paparazzi mostly use drones.
Right.
So in the past there were car companies that were approaching Thorsten. When they're testing their new cars in the wild, they don't want the picture of the car to be leaked. And the drone is, so they would hire him and put his system. And then you did the NATO G8 summit.
Okay, we have some nice references, but the most we can't speak about.
Okay.
The big problem is really that everything is top secret if it comes to drone detection, because nobody wants to tell that it's installed.
Right. Okay. So it's also like the whole case.
So that's why Muscat is quite different.
Right. Muscat is probably the starting point for the GCC, considering we do have airports here. I'm not asking you for any answers, but hopefully if we see any drone detection systems here, that would be great. But now...
But I would just like to say, as an Omani, I'm very proud that Oman has taken the initiative and taken this step. You know, it's a very proud moment for me as an Omani.
Of course, even Muscat International Airport, the new airport, is fairly new, and then we're already seeing all of these new technologies being implemented there. So I think it's great. Now, there was a recent survey conducted in the US where it said that there are 8 times more drones than private aircraft in the US, which was really, really amusing for me. And this is just everything on the record. So off the record, of course, with all these DIY drones coming up, etc., there must be much more. Do you know what it's like in this region?
It's, I'll take that.
Yeah, but the huge problem is that, as you said, there's so many drones that it's just a matter of time still till something will happen.
So we don't really know.
Take the fingers crossed, till today, nothing happened. Yeah. But
you never know.
It's a possibility, of course.
Yeah, if it rises, the number are rising, you know,
so
it's a big problem.
The issue is as well because online shopping and ordering stuff, the online stores, we don't really know how many drones are in the region.
Right.
And I'm sure if you talk to your neighbors or your friends, you'll definitely find a few people who have a drone.
Right.
And there was initially as well a lot of shops that were selling them before it even came on the radar.
Right.
So do we know how many there are in the market? No. And it will continue because it's not something... Today, FedEx, DHL, they all, and now a drone doesn't look different to a power bank or a laptop.
Yeah.
So how do you track it? How do you monitor it? It's not so simple.
Right, exactly. So just speaking of online, Amazon and Uber had also announced about getting their deliveries done using drones. Yeah. So there's obviously just so many sides of the story, right? Drones, which is used for military purposes, commercial uses, people who are using it to intrude into privacy with all of these Facebook ads and everything that we've seen. Privacy has become such a huge topic. So there's the negative aspect of it, but also there are so many positive use cases of drones, which just ends up making life easier. So where exactly do you draw the line? Which gets me to how much regulation is too much regulation when it comes to drones and drone technology?
Yeah, of course it should be possible to evolve. So if you over-regulate it, you have nothing to do anymore, of course. Yeah. So you really have to keep it at the part where it makes sense. Yeah.
So,
but it should really, for instance, it should have a beacon on board. So every drone should have an emitter on board that you know exactly where the drone is.
Okay.
It's very, very simple to add this. You should.
So it's like a GPS then.
It's like a GPS. So it tells you where it is. Yeah. And for the drone companies, it's no problem at all to implement it because it's already inside.
Right.
You just have to open it. Yeah, and share the code
but
that we can read it, for instance. Yeah, and this is just a regulation part that's very, very simple to do. Why not?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is we understand the benefits of a UAV or a drone, and so do the governments. The use cases outweigh the cons if you can know where everything is. In the end of the day, your mobile phones are regulated, cars are regulated, airplanes are regulated. Everything is regulated in this world.
Yeah.
Drones are just a new thing. And they should be regulated. And if you know, if there is, for example, the right word is, a location which is sensitive, and you are concerned about the security and safety of this area, if there is someone flying nearby and they're facing the other direction, our system can tell you where they're looking and what they're doing.
Right.
So, do you really need to bring this person down? Do you really need to stop him? You only need to stop him if he is trying to do something malicious.
Right.
Right? So, we're trying to provide the tools that is a win-win for both sides. Because you want to get the benefits in the oil industry, in so many industries, even in the telecom industry.
Right.
Drones have a place. And they're going to make lives easier, make lives safer, because there are certain jobs which can be eventually replaced
Of course,
by
in relief
robotics.
measures, drones are being used heavily there.
Even you have the case we were discussing of telecommunications. So you can have mesh networks where you can fly a drone. There may be some place which is difficult to get to, on top of a mountain or so on. And you cannot get a telecom tower there.
Right.
You could fly a drone with the right technology to have a communication link between the two. So there are so many benefits. But to enjoy those benefits, we have to regulate. And it has to show up on the flight, the air traffic control. You need to know the drones are here, where. And our system, the key is the software.
Right.
So forget all the equipment. The software is smart enough to put in the protections, to put in the zones, to learn. It's based on AI.
Right. So would you categorize your software, the drone detection software, as an anti-drone technology that you've come up with? Or is it just sort of...
It's a monitoring software. So we know exactly where every RF is that's transmitting. So it's not only about drone detection. So we see any RF. So it's also a monitoring system, what every country wants anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So it's also drones, but usually it's a monitoring system.
So what would you say is the main challenge when it comes to regulation? Why, now that your company was set up 5 to 6 years back, drones have been in the sphere for so many years, why has there been no regulations done? I think the country that's come closest would be Rwanda, because they've got certain policies in place at least. So why is it not happening here or in other parts of the world?
It was too fast. So it came to the market so fast that everybody didn't have it on the radar.
Right.
Yeah, and now you have billions and billions of those drones everywhere, and then now they're scared and say, oh, we have to make a regulation. But now it's too late. So now we really have to catch up.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that there's over 2,000 factories in China.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
if this is enough.
It's unbelievable the speed at which these are coming out. And you have to look at it like, at the end of the day, drones are leading to something new. Not only in terms of what the drones do themselves, but people, when we were growing up, we had Lego, and then we had, these remote control cars, and all these, the modular aircrafts. Now you're actually making something that can do something.
Right.
And it's honing talent. Young people are learning how to put these things together. It's a great way to learn. I mean, DJI released this robot, I think it's like a remote control car, but they sell it to you fully disassembled.
Okay.
And you have to put it together. So it's teaching real skill sets. And we need to nurture these things for the future.
But that is scary as well, right? Because I just did a quick Google search of DIY drones, and then I saw just various variations of it online. But it can be used in many ways, as we see on social media. People are using social media for the right reasons and for the wrong reasons.
Definitely.
Everybody has access to it, which could be a problem, which is why, again, coming back to the whole conversation of regulation, it is necessary.
Adding to your point, drones is a much smaller subject than social media.
Right.
And till today, there's no regulation on social media. So if you're saying, why isn't there regulation yet? The same thing you can say about social media. Okay. It's a very difficult topic. It is not as simple as one country deciding, because it has to be done as a joint global effort. Fair enough. So now that we don't really have a set of guidelines, what is it that individuals, industries, companies and governments can do on a basic level to drone-proof their systems and their just premises? Yeah, it's the same. You just go there and regulate it correctly, and then you have your perfect system. Right, like individually, is there something that we need to know as viewers, as consumers, and also as just people who want to be cautious? What is it that we can do? Learning the best case and safety and ways of flying. There need to be education, and there need to be opportunities for learning. Right now, it's very easy to buy a drone. It's not very easy to get someone to teach you how to use it. But it's very, very easy to fly compared to the old days. Right. So today you simply remove your remote and it's still hovering. It will not crash. Right. In the old days, if you remove your remote, it will crash and go somewhere. And that's what changed. That's why everybody can use it.
and loves to use it because it's so easy to operate.
Right. In closing, unfortunately, we're running out of time. A lot of questions. But in closing, I'm just going to throw this question to both of y'all. Do the pros outweigh the cons when it comes to drones? Thorsten, what do you think?
For sure it does.
The pros outweigh the cons?
Yes.
Wow. What do you think, Aaditya?
I agree as well. As long as we have the right way of enhancing the pros and controlling the cons, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've definitely learned so much about drones. And thank you for watching AB Live. We will be back again next Tuesday.